When we talk about risk, we are talking about something that is uncertain. Okay, something that is uncertain may or might not happen. And when we also talk about risk, it is something that is measurable. Measurable not in terms of percentages or not in terms of figures. Measurable maybe in terms of high, medium, and low. So in order to assess risk, we need to determine whether the risk happening in the company is a high risk situation or a low risk situation or a medium risk situation. Okay. For the purpose of your final examination, you need not to write that it is a high, medium, or low risk. But if you found a significant risk, so there is specific examples for significant risk, then you might want to write that in your as part of your answers to get to not to get more marks lah, but to increase confidence of the examiners in marking your papers. Okay. And when we talk about risk assessment, we are talking about uncertain. We are also talking about something related to future events. What may happen in future because of previous risk. So this type of three meaning of risk will be related to our audit risk question. So when we talk about audit risk, you know you have learned the audit risk model. AR equal to RMM times DR. AR stands for audit risk. RMM stands for risk of material misstatements. Times DR stands for detection risk. Okay. How familiar you all with this model? With this equation? How familiar you are? Can anyone answer? Just say yes or no. That will be enough. Oh yes, okay. I should have a look at the chat. Quite familiar. Okay. So this equation AR equal to RMM times DR would not be a favorite questions in section B. You know, section B you have to write 70 marks, and then you have section A MCQ ataupun OTQ for 30 marks. So this equation would be probably came out for your OTQ section A, AR equal to RMM and DR. So what questions that can be asked in OTQ section is define, choose the best explanation for audit risk. And then from the options available, choose which one is risk of material misstatement. Choose which one is detection risk. Okay, so this model ataupun this equation would probably came out for your section A rather than section B. But in recent past years, they have also asked you to define audit risk model. So they have asked you to define audit risk, define RMM, define DR, and define what is inside RMM, plus you need to give example to get 5 marks full. So in that case, we have to understand what is audit risk. Okay, so audit risk is risk that auditor issues inappropriate opinion on the financial statement. Risk that auditor issues inappropriate opinion on the financial statement. So when we talk about inappropriate opinion, we can say that auditors issue wrong opinion on the financial statement. So there may be two situations how auditors can issue wrong opinion. Number one, the financial statement contain material misstatement, but the auditor issues that the financial statement is true and fair. So there is one audit risk issue. Second situation is the financial statement is correct, but the financial statement is correct means the financial statement does not contain material misstatement, but the auditor issue financial statement does not show true and fair view. So there ada dua situation. The second situation, the later one would be very rare to happen lah. Sebab biasanya jarang kita nak issue kata financial statement tu betul, and then kita issue salah tu biasanya jarang lagi. Tapi most of the time would be financial statement tu salah tapi kita issue betul. Okay, so risk that auditor issues inappropriate opinion on the financial statement. So when we talk about audit risk, we have only one rule regarding audit risk. That is, we want our audit risk to be as low as possible. We want to reduce our audit risk to be as low as possible. Maksudnya, you tak nak increase chances of you giving inappropriate opinion to the shareholders. Kita nak reducekan kita punya audit risk as low as possible supaya we can give a true and fair view on the financial statement to the shareholders ataupun the users. Okay, so how we want to make sure that this audit risk is as low as possible? Would you reduce RMM or would you reduce DR? If anyone can remember. DR, very good. Okay. So in order to reduce audit risk as low as possible, we need to reduce DR. So when we talk about DR is risk that auditors' procedures unable to detect material misstatements in the financial statement. Risk that auditors' procedures unable to detect material misstatements in the financial statement. So from the meaning, we can understand that DR is, detection risk is risk that audit work, kerja yang auditor buat, unable for them to detect material misstatement in the financial statement. So dia buat macam mana pun, dia unable to detect any errors in the financial statement. So when we talk about auditors tu punya audit work, their own action, that's why we can only control our own actions rather than we control the risk of material misstatement, because risk of material misstatement belong to the client. DR is belong to auditors themselves. So we can control ourselves. We cannot control other person. Okay, in short, the detection risk is controllable. So favorite question yang mungkin akan keluar MCQ, which one is controllable? Risk. DR, RMM, IR ataupun CR. Okay, kalau keluar soalan very simple ni jackpot lah. Okay, so when we have understand this, let's move to RMM. RMM is risk of financial statement contain material misstatements. Okay, before the audit. Before the audit maksudnya, sebelum you accept the engagement, sebelum you have signed your engagement letter with the client, sebelum you have planned your audit work, there already risk ataupun material misstatements in the financial statement. So sebelum you masuk join audit the client ataupun join the engagement team, the misstatements is already there in the financial statement. That's why this risk is belong to the client. And also that's why this RMM is not controllable. Okay, DR is risk that belongs to us, the auditor. So that's why we can only control ourselves. That's why DR is controllable. We can only reduce DR, but we cannot control RMM. What do you mean by able to control or not able to control is, let's say if you found the material misstatement, for example, you jumpa, you kata, there is new finance director in the company for the past 6 months. Okay, from June until December, there is a new finance director. So it is something, it is a RMM, risk of material misstatement, that the auditors unable to control. So kalau ada new finance director, maybe that new finance director is not familiar with the business and so unable to review effectively how the financial statement would be, and that's why that create material misstatement. However, when you attend and audit the company, the detection risk would be, for example, the client has many warehouses, and then you did not have enough resources. You did not have enough teams to attend the warehouses, inventory stocks. So what can you do? You hire more seniors ataupun you hire more audit members to attend the stock take in every warehouses. So something that you can control, we call detection risk. Something that is there before the audit, that is called risk of material misstatement. Okay, so auditors have to assess RMM at both overall and financial statement assertion level. So under RMM, we need to know also what is assertion. So assertions can be divided into two parts. One is assertions for SOFP and another one is assertion for SOPL. So we have specific assertions for SOFP and we have specific assertion for SOPL. And these assertions is useful when you want to write your answers for substantive procedures. Okay, remember your substantive procedures, you need to write so that you are able to detect actual material misstatement, followed the assertions provided by ISA. So this one kita akan cover later on dalam IRC nanti. So in RMM, there are two risks that you need to know. One is inherent risk, another one is control risk. So often students mix up with these two risks. What is inherent, what is control risk? So very simple definition to differentiate between inherent and control risk. Inherent risk is risk that items in financial statement contain material misstatements. Wait, I need to find the full answer. Oh my God. Risk that items in financial statement contain material misstatements before consideration of any related controls and often affected by its nature. So from the definition itself, we can say that this risk, this inherent risk arises before any related controls is there. Before you have control, there is already risk in the financial statement and often affected by its nature. So very simple example, if you are dealing with deferred tax. Okay, I'm not sure have you learned deferred tax before in FR ataupun you punya previous paper. So deferred tax is not something that is easy to account for. So when there is complex calculation, complex treatment for this deferred tax, that is one of the inherent risks whereby you letak control macam mana pun, you letak a very good control, you have a very good person review that, but there is still inherent risk there. By nature itself, deferred tax is very difficult to account for. So that is a simple example of inherent risk. Another example would be very simple with estimation account. So when we talk about estimation account, it involves judgment. So judgment, my judgment may be different from your judgment. You can over or under judge something. I can over or underestimate something. So that's why this estimation account, for example, depreciation, contingent liabilities, provision, amortization is a very inherent risk items whereby we need to focus on the we need to increase our testing if we want to audit this estimation account. So it is part of inherent risk. You letak control macam mana pun, you tak boleh elak daripada my over or underestimate, your over or underestimate. So that's why it is called inherent risk. Okay, so let's just write a few examples. Number one, just now we have estimation account. Number two, just now we have what was I talking about? Okay, estimation account. Let's say number two, prone to misstatement. Items prone to misstatement. So, okay, examples of items that is prone to misstatement. Okay, sorry, deferred tax, thank you. Number 3, complexity. Complexity of calculation. So, for example, deferred tax. Okay, come back to number 2, items that is prone to misstatement. So, we know that when we first read the scenario in our final questions, we have to first identify the nature of the business. Why we need to identify the nature of the business? Because we want to understand what is the business looks like. Is it a retail company? Is it a service company? Is it airline company? Because these three businesses have different risks. So when we talk about retail company, it involves a lot of cash in the company. Okay. When we talk about service company, you don't have any inventories to audit. So you don't have any inventory account to audit for. So you don't have that section in your working paper. When we talk about airline business, you are talking about very big assets. So your focus would be auditing on non-current assets rather than inventories, etc. So first we need to understand the nature of the business. So items that is prone to misstatement, for example, retail tadi, we can say that cash is items that is prone to misstatement. Jewelries, if you are selling jewelries, so that kind of inventory is very valuable. So there are items that prone to misstatement. So you letak control macam mana pun, memang benda tu akan mudah hilang, akan mudah ada error, akan mudah dicuri, for example. Okay, so that is inherent risk. Cash or jewelries, inventories, valuable inventories. Okay. So these are inherent risks. What else can we have? Can have one more. Okay, yang ni yang favourite juga keluar dalam past year. Motivation to manipulate figures. Another favourite items, another favourite areas, another favourite risk in final examination, motivation to manipulate figures. Often you would see sales bonus, okay, sorry. Oh, what is it called? Commission based sale. So kalau you jual lagi tinggi, dapat increase commission. Bonus when you able to sell certain items above certain figures. Okay, so that motivation to manipulate figures is an inherent risk. Because why? The seller themselves, the salesman, may tend to create fictitious sales in order for them to obtain the bonus, in order for them to obtain the allowances, in order for them to obtain the profit. So this is an inherent risk, because if you put how many controls, very good controls to control the sales, the salesmen themselves cannot overcome their ego to obtain higher sales by creating fictitious sales in order to get a higher bonus. So this is something that is uncontrollable. That's why, and it is affected by the nature. That's why it falls under inherent risk. Okay. I think that's enough for examples. Let's move to control risk. Okay, what's the different inherent and control risk? So when we talk about control risk, we are talking about risk that items in financial statement contain material misstatement and will not be prevented, detected, will not be prevented or detected, yes, or detected and corrected by an entity's internal control, on a timely basis. So if inherent risk is before consideration of any related control. Control risk is after consideration of any internal control, but such control unable to prevent or detect and correct any material misstatement. As simple as that. So when we talk about control risk, you akan jumpa control, and then however the control is very poor, there is control, but the control is not effective and hence results in material misstatement. Very simple example. No segregation of duties. So we understand that segregation of duties is having different person performing different responsibilities. Take a very simple cycle, sales cycle. We must have different person fill in the order form. We must have different person receiving payment from customers. We must have different person issuing invoices. So if there is only one person performing these three responsibilities, the same person fill up the order form, the same person issue invoices, the same person receive payment from the customers. What is the significant risk can arise from this situation? Mr. A perform three responsibilities: take order, issue invoices, and also receive payment from customers. So dia macam control semua dalam bahagian sales tu. What may happen? Fraud. What kind of fraud? Yeah, often students like to use the word fraud. Okay, just to remind you all, examiners clearly highlight that you cannot just mention fraud may happen. Fraud may happen. Skip fraud, skip fraud. Okay, yes. It must be specific. Fraud in what? For example, fraud in recording, manipulation of sales, creating fictitious sales, creating may also create fraud, for example, teaming and leading. So if you want to use fraud, it is allowable as long as you mention what kind of fraud you are talking about. Fraud related to sale, masih lagi general, you need to mention specifically. Fraud in terms of recording of sales transaction. Manipulation in terms of creating fictitious sales order. Fraud such as teaming and leading. Yes, that would be granted you half mark. Kalau you just sekadar kata fraud, then you won't get any marks lah sebab anyone can say, I pun boleh kata, oh fraud, fraud, fraud. So sikit-sikit fraud, so dia orang highlight, examiners highlight that clearly if you just mention fraud, you are unable to get any marks. So you need to make it clear. So to pass audit and assurance, it is doable tau to pass audit and assurance, but as long as you can able to write a very specific answer. If you see past year questions for these audit risk questions, you would find the items ataupun the risk is repetitively came out. If not, after 2 years, dia akan keluar lagi sekali isu yang sama. So by right, actually, students tend to memorize lah apa jawapan-jawapan dia. But my advice is for us not to memorize. We try to understand and then we create our own sentence. And then you akan feel lagi you akan rasa lagi satisfied with your answers, and then you akan insyaAllah boleh dapat markah yang diperlukan. Okay, no segregation of duties. Fraud such as teaming and leading. Ataupun tadi kawan ni kata manipulation of creating fictitious sales. Okay, yes, that would be the answer. Okay, another simple example for control risk is overtime payment. Ini pun favorite juga. Overtime payment must be authorized and reviewed by higher personnel. Someone superior in the company, for example, manager in the department, for example, manager. So there is an overtime form, but if the employees can submit the overtime form without authorization from the manager, then that is one of the control risks. Having the overtime form is a control. And then to add in the control, to make it an effective control, the overtime form need to be reviewed and authorized by manager. However, when that is not done, then that can be one of the control risks. Overtime payment not being authorized. Yes. Okay, so kenapa kita kena tahu what is inherent risk, what is control risk, and what is detection risk? We will use this idea to find our audit risk issues in the scenario. So kita akan guna idea tentang estimation account. We would use the idea of complexity of calculation. We would use the idea of no segregation of duties. We would use the idea of detection risk to find our issues in the scenario. That's how you identify the correct audit issues in the question. Okay, now let's move to detection risk. So tadi kita dah discuss, in order to ensure audit risk as low as possible, EA can only reduce DR to achieve the purpose. We cannot control the RMM just now. We cannot control the having no segregation of duties. We can only recommend, tapi kita tak boleh nak control. Kalau dia orang tak nak buat, then tak nak buat jugalah. And then estimation account pun we are talking about judgment, so that is something that is not controllable. So when we talk about detection risk, to get the idea, we can divide detection risk into two further risks. One is sampling risk, another one is non-sampling risk. Okay. So sampling risk is risk that EA cannot detect material misstatements because did not audit entire population. Okay, since this is a refresh class, you should know that auditors only perform their audit work based on sample basis. Okay, they use audit sampling in their everyday work and in order to detect material misstatement. So due to that reasons, they create sampling risk. However, it is something unavoidable because auditors unable to audit the whole 1,000 transactions per month. Auditors unable to audit the whole 1,000 transactions per year. Okay, that's why they have to use the audit sampling basis. The question here is now, kita nak siapkan audit juga. So, we need to reduce this sampling risk to an acceptable level so that we can ensure audit. So that we can ensure audit risk to be as low as possible. So, how can we reduce sampling risk? How can we reduce sampling risk so that we are able to detect material misstatements? Anyone have the idea? This is unavoidable, but increase sampling size. Yes, thank you. Sharifah Soleha. Increase sampling size. So if at first you take 10% sample, then increase your sampling size to be 20%, then increase to 50% and 60% until you feel confident that you're able to detect material misstatement. Only then you're able to reduce the R to be as low as possible, and so you have reduced your audit risk. Increase sampling size. Apart from increase sampling size, you can also increase audit work ataupun you punya substantive testing. Do more work to identify more material misstatement because that is our ultimate purpose as an auditor. We want to give reasonable assurance so that the financial statement is free from material misstatement due to fraud or error in order to give true and fairness of the financial statement. So how we want to detect, how we want to ensure that the financial statement is free from material misstatement, we have to increase our sample size and also increase our substantive testing. Okay. So these are the two examples of how to reduce the sampling risk. So very simple one, kita lah kena buat banyak kerja lah. In short, we have to do a lot of work. So for non-sampling risk is risk that EA cannot detect material misstatements even if they audit the whole population. So just now kita argue, since we unable to audit the whole population, we would create the sampling risk. However, we can reduce it to a certain level by performing these two procedures. But we also can audit 100% of the transaction. However, this, even if you audit 100% of the transaction, you would also give rise to this sampling risk. Okay, one of the examples of this sampling risk is number one here. When you have inexperienced auditors in your team, ataupun when we are talking about new juniors in your team who is lack of industry knowledge. So if you encounter with this situation, although you perform 100% testing on the transaction, but if you are still new to the industry, if you have no experience auditing such type of business, then you still unable to detect material misstatement. Okay, this is called non-sampling risk. Risk that arises because of even if you audit the entire population, it is due to yourself sendiri, the auditor themselves. They are the one who is inexperienced and they are the one who is lacking of industry knowledge. So how to reduce this? Very easy. Provide training. We ask the firm to provide training for these new auditors, for these inexperienced auditors. And then we can also have more seniors in the team. If you put more seniors who are more experienced auditing the company, then you must be able to detect material misstatement. Or else you can spend more time to understand the business. Okay, often we have planning stage whereby you allocate around 1 to 2 weeks to understand the business of the company in order for you to reduce your detection risk, in order to reduce non-sampling risk. So these are the safeguard. These are the responses that you can write in your audit response section. Number 2, when you have tight audit deadline. Okay, having tight audit deadline is not controllable by either auditors or by the audit members, by either the audit partner or the audit members. But you can, it's unavoidable, but you can control by splitting the audit into interim and final audit. Okay, interim audit is audit work that you perform before year end, and final audit the audit work that you perform after year end. So by splitting audit into interim and final audit, you able to reach the audit deadline on time so that you can issue the financial statement to the shareholders based on the deadline agreed. So number 3, something that is also unavoidable but still controllable if you are having poor planning ataupun negligence issue. Okay, ini kalau kita kata tentang poor quality control in the audit firm. Okay, having poor quality control in the audit firm, specifically we have one section that we learn about having an independent partner review. So this independent partner review, who is independent from the engagement team, would review the audit work either pre or post, either hot or cold review, and then they would provide advice on how to improve the planning, on how to reduce the negligence issues in auditing the company and so on. Okay, this is something unavoidable but still controllable by the audit firm. And lastly, when we are talking about having new client, it is unavoidable to have new client in your audit firm, but as auditor, we still can control this non-sampling risk by having more seniors in the team, because they are more experienced, so they can provide and detect material misstatements and then provide a correct opinion, and also spend more time to understand the business. Okay. So soalan akan keluar, kalau you tengok soalan, dia akan keluar dalam this one, the part Y ni you akan cari dalam scenario, and then the how to reduce is the one that you will provide in your audit response section. Okay. Alright. So I think we can move to look at the questions. Okay. So I'm using March, June 1917B, not full questions, just the extract. Required, describe 8 audit risks and explain auditor's response to each risk. So, in order to answer this question, we know that the question is asking you for 2 parts. One is audit risk, another one is auditor's response. So, you should present your answer in a table format. Nowadays, you punya exam semua computer based. So computer based tak ada masalah. Memang ACCA dah siap bagi, dah provide the tables and the column. You just need to fill in sahaja. Okay, let's say if there is no tables provided. So please remember to answer these questions. Please have 2 column table. One is audit risk and another one is auditor's response. Okay. Now, before we move on, let's just let me draw the column first. Don't you have any question to ask? Oh, is it a very simple topic? So semua orang boleh faham je apa yang I cakap. Okay, so soalan tanya for 8 audit risks, 16 marks, so 2 mark each. So 1 mark would be here and another one would be auditor's response. So you need to provide 8 risks. So nowadays the question is asking for 7 and above audit risks and 7 and above control deficiencies. So no longer 5 to 6 lah. Okay, you should be prepared for that. So biasanya kalau soalan minta 8, we can identify, we can detect 9 and 10, 9 to 10 audit risk in the scenario. So kalau soalan minta 7, you can able to detect 8 to 9 audit risk. So kalau you dapat cari ngam-ngam 8 tu, kena cari lagi dengan diligently, mesti dapat 9 to 10 audit risk. The independent reviewer is from audit firm or audit client? From your audit firm. The independent reviewer is from your firm. Audit client, dia hanya provide, they just provide the books and records, they just provide the information needed. But the one yang nak control how the audit work looks like, how to review the audit work, to give advice on what you should do and what you shouldn't do in your audit work, it will be partner ataupun independent partner from your firm. The partner must be independent from the engagement team. Let's say kita ada engagement team A, partner A, manager A, senior A, junior A. So this independent reviewer must not be from this engagement team, so that he or she can give independent review on audit work that is performed by this engagement team A. That's how we can improve the poor planning and also the negligence in terms of this engagement A. Am I answering your question? Alright, good. Okay, now let's move to the techniques to answer audit risk and auditor's response. So you know audit risk, you get 1 mark. So how to get 1 mark? Very simple. First, you write the issue found in scenario. So just by writing the issue, you already get the first half mark. You can write the full sentence from the scenario, or if you want to make it your own sentence, you can, but please did not miss out the points lah. Okay, the points is very important for you to get the first half mark. And then to get the second half mark, alright. So I would suggest you to start your answer with writing this as per standard, comma, ... As per standard ataupun as per IAS 38, research cost cannot be cannot be capitalized as non-current asset. As per standard, development costs can be capitalized as non-current asset only if they satisfy all criteria in the standard, all criteria of PIRATE, full stop. As per standard, revenue can only be recorded once the performance obligation has been satisfied. As per standard, inventory should be valued at lower of cost or net realizable value. As per standard, share premium should be splitted into two accounts. There is share capital and share premium account. So you write everything as per standard yang you dah belajar dalam you punya FR. Okay. Writing these standards would help you to write the next answer. There is risk that ... would help you to write the correct risk upon the issues you already found. So you tahu you punya as per standard is about development cost must be capitalized provided they satisfy full criteria, all criteria in the standard PIRATE. So there is risk that the development cost does not satisfy all criteria in PIRATE. That's how you answer. Kalau you tertinggal as per standard part, there is risk that you also give the wrong risk, audit risk in your answer. So my advice is we write the standard first, just to make sure our answers are correct. And then only then we write there is risk, that the audit risk. And then examiners clearly highlight that if you want to get half mark, you should give impact to financial statement. These impacts can be in terms of overstatement, understatement, or materially misstated. So if you did not write any overstatement or understatement or materially misstated sentence in your answer, even though your as per and there is risk that is correct, you would not get any half mark. Okay, the full setup here should be in your answers to get half mark full. As per standard, you belajar FR, you belajar apa, you tulis je apa yang you belajar itu, not the long one, not the long standards definition, the very brief definition of the standard. And then apa risk yang akan berlaku. So this risk would rise from your standards yang you tulis tadi. And then apa akan jadi because of that risk? Is it over or understate? Is it materially misstated? And so on. Only then you can get half mark. Okay, so for the auditor's response, another thing highlighted by examiners for auditor's response is students often confuse to write response on behalf of auditors or on behalf of management. They often write response due to management. Management should blah blah blah. Management should increase blah blah blah. Management should do blah blah blah. Walhal the questions, the requirement clearly highlight that auditors respond. So kita kena bagi response based on auditor's point of view. So you simply just start your answer with auditor should ... Okay, so you write this answer, no matter what is your next answer pun, at least the examiners dah ada confidence dah dekat you, or you at least write auditor, you faham ini adalah response by auditor. So you just write your sentence, you start your sentence with auditor should. Okay, and the purpose of you writing auditor's response is you want to obtain SAAE. SAAE stands for sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, so that you give correct opinion and detect actual material misstatement. So the idea with auditor's response is you want to gather or obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence so that you can give the correct conclusion or opinion, and so that you're able to detect material misstatement. That's why you have this auditor's response. Okay, bila you move to substantive procedures nanti, baru you akan buat balik apa yang you cakap dalam auditor's response ni. And another thing that we need to highlight, auditor's response cannot be vague. Cannot be too general. Macam kita kata tadi, risk of fraud. We cannot just mention fraud. We need to be specific. You cannot just mention increased substantive testing, full stop. You must make it specific. Increase substantive testing with regards to blah, blah, blah. Increase sample size of blah, blah, blah. And then perform more audit work on blah, blah, blah. You cannot just make it general, make it too vague. You must make it specific. The rule is must be specific. So in our IRC nanti in November, I will teach you how to write a specific auditor's response in order for us to get 1 mark. Okay, let's just do one example from the questions. Okay, can we take a very simple one? Okay, can we look at 4th paragraph? This paragraph. Oh, sorry, this paragraph tak ada yang contoh tu. Okay, we take the 3rd paragraph and then we move to the 4th paragraph. Okay, so in the 3rd paragraph, you see that PINI values inventory in line with industry practice. Okay, later I come back to Nadia. Kita tengok soalan ni kejap PINI values inventory in line with industry practice, which is to use selling price less average profit margin. Okay, first thing yang kita nak highlight, we are talking about inventory. So you tahu you belajar inventory, you belajar IAS 2. So in IAS 2, they say that inventory must be valued using lower of cost or NRV. However, in the question they have mentioned PINI did not use lower of cost or NRV, but instead they use selling price less average profit margin, which is in line with the industry practice. So my question is PINI wrong of using this selling price minus less average profit margin, or should they use lower of cost or NRV? Is PINI wrong here? Is their practice wrong here? No, tak salah sebab it is already in line with industry practice. However, what audit risk can arise from here is the directors considers this to be a close approximation to cost. One type of risk can appear here, can rise here. When we talk about close approximation to cost, what type of risk can arise here? If you want to answer this question, first kena ingat risk ada 3. 1, IR, 2, CR, and 3, DR. So this close approximation to cost falls under which type of risk? Inherent, yes. Inherent risk. Sebab apa? Kita ada guna estimation dekat situ. Approximately. Okay, you have to use your average profit margin. So you kira tu berdasarkan estimation, berdasarkan judgment. So dia akan give rise to inherent risk. Okay, so how we gonna answer? Let's try to use this issue to write our full answer. Okay, kita guna setup yang atas ni. Okay, let me just reply Nadia question. So is it okay all the column first sentence is the same as you said? All the column first sentence is the same. Nadia, do you mean that do you mean that this should be your first answer? Sorry. Yang I highlight ni and then you write this as part of your first answer, is it? Yes, you should. You should write this as part of your answer. You should start your answer with as per standard, that is risk that, auditor should, just to keep track of you not giving wrong answers, not writing wrong answers. Dia macam introduction lah. So once kita dah tulis as per standard, tiba-tiba idea datang mencurah-curah. Padahal tak ada idea pun, tapi because of you writing as per standard, you have the idea, oh aku kena cerita pasal standard isu yang aku jumpa kat atas ni. And then that is risk that, aku tahu risk dia adalah berdasarkan standard yang aku baru tulis tadi. And then you must give your impact to financial statement. Use this three words here. Over, understatement or material misstated. Same goes to auditor should. Kalau you tak start your answer with auditor should, you tend to give response based on management's point of view. Itu saja. We are trying to, I am trying to teach you how to write the correct answer based on the examiner's technique. Based on the exam techniques. Bukannya jawapan yang fikir jawab. Itu yang kadang-kadang korang fikir betul. Tapi sometimes jawapan tu tak kena sebab tersilap exam techniques tu saja. AA is most of the time would be about exam techniques lah rather than most of the time would be exam techniques. Okay, so I prefer you to write the first sentence here and then it helps you to eventually write the correct answer. Okay, let's just start with the first. Tadi kita kata Pini use selling price less average profit margin and believe it is close approximation to cost. Okay, so you get your first half mark by writing the issue. Okay, then we need to move to the next sentence, as per standard. So, as per standard. Okay, kita tahu standard kata inventory kena value using lower of cost or NRV. However, this company guna industry practice, selling price minus average profit margin. So kita tak boleh lah tulis dekat sini as per standard, company should value using lower of cost or NRV. Sebab kita kata tadi dia boleh nak guna industry practice. Cuma isu dia sekarang adalah tentang approximation to cost. So kita highlight as per standard dia kata apa tentang approximation to cost. As per standard, the value should reflect the actual cost of the inventory, should reflect the actual cost of the inventory, or what can I say? Kita kata N. Must be closely approximate to cost. Yeah, should be. Okay, it's either you use the actual cost of the inventory or must be closely approximate to cost. Okay, so you terus kepada there is risk that. There is risk that. So when we talk about approximation, kita kata tadi inherent risk ataupun they can over or underestimate. So there is risk that company over or underestimate the approximation cost comma and hence Okay, then you give the impact to financial statement. Now, the impact could be over, under, or materially misstated. Over, under, or materially misstated based on the risk that you wrote. Risk that company over or underestimate the approximation cost. Overvalued. Okay, if you want to say overvalued, dia akan berkaitan dengan overestimate. Am I correct? How about the underestimate one? If you underestimate, can the inventories be overvalued? If you underestimate, if the company underestimate the approximation cost of inventory, can the total figure of inventory be overvalued? Yes. Okay. Kalau you underestimate, how come dia jadi overvalued tu tak? Sebab kalau dia underestimate, maksudnya you use a lower value lah. So it should be undervalued lah. Tapi kalau you overestimate, you are overestimating the cost, maksudnya you are giving a higher value of the inventory, so it would be overvalued. Do you agree with me? Yes, okay. So in this case, since you did not know, is it over or understated, over or undervalued, why not you just write both? The enhance, the inventory, maybe over or undervalued. Full stop, you already get your first half mark. Okay, yang I nak highlight Hila, tadi you write you punya risk, over or underestimate. So your impact to financial statement must reflect your risk mentioned, which is also over or undervalued. Meaning that if you write your risk over or underestimate, but your impact to financial statement is only overvalued, you will not get the half mark. Sebab the impact tu salah. So this impact is very important to determine whether you get your half or not. Half mark or not. Okay, so it's just another technique that we will learn further in our IRC nanti. Okay, so let's move to the auditor's response. Okay, very simple one. So in this case, when we talk about approximation to cost, you are talking about estimation account. So first, auditor should can we ask management? First, what we can do. Okay, auditor should first ask management on the breakdown of selling price less average profit margin. Auditor should first ask management on the breakdown of selling price less average profit margin. So when you ask the management, on this breakdown of selling price less average profit margin, you're able to identify what is the approximation cost that they have used. And then if you write this one, you already get the first half mark, and then you can continue with and determine whether the cost is closely approximate. to actual cost of inventory. Then you will get another half mark. Okay, tak vague sebab apa? You mention apa yang you nak, the breakdown, and then you mention apa yang you akan buat on the breakdown that you have obtained. You want to determine the cost is approximate, closely approximate or not. So you are not giving general answers here. Okay. So to learn further, you boleh join my IRC nanti in November. Okay, hari ni just refresh class very quickly. I tak rasa I go quite surface here, dah sedetail juga kat sini. Okay, let's move to last part. Fourth paragraph, I want to highlight the last sentence here. PINI maintained its own payroll records until 31st December, at which point the records were transferred to the service organisation. Meaning that the service organisation perform the payroll functions of the company. So dia yang akan fill in the double entry for the payroll account for PINICO, okay, the service organisation. So here you can have an audit risk, but is it IR, CR or DR? Is it risk belongs to auditor? No. This is not a detection risk because this risk is not belong to auditor. Okay, company yang pergi transfer dia punya records kepada service organisation. So this is not a detection risk. Now the question is it inherent or control risk? Are we talking about a control here? Is there any control in the sentence, in the issue? Transferring to service organisation, is that a control? Or is it some part of controls that PINICO use to transfer the service records to service organisation? Or is it something, a transactions that happen before any controls apply due to its nature? Inherent or control risk? Bila you transfer records, my information, let's say I dah deliver information to you and then you deliver information to your friends. So that is the transferring process there. So what errors can arise there from that situation? Bila you main transfer ni, apa error yang akan berlaku? Manipulation. Okay, what kind of manipulation? Manipulation in terms of? Okay, Nadia kata control risk. Okay, dan betul dah. What kind of control risk yang lack here? Manipulation tu dah betul, sama sikit. What kind of manipulation? Error in misuse of information. Error in wrong information transfer. Yes. So bila kita main transfer macam kita main telefon rosak, telefon buruk tu, okay, you transfer information from one person to another person. PINI transfer information, accounting information from his accounting system to the service organization's accounting system. So there might be manipulation or errors in terms of transferring of information. Mungkin ada information yang tersilap hantar, terlepas hantar, ataupun what we call omission or double omission or wrong information transferred from PINI to service organization. So in this case, it is a control risk, yes. Sebab there is no control, no effective control while you are transferring the information. So that's why this is an audit risk, specifically control risk. Okay, so how are we going to write the answer? Okay. The issue is Pini transfer the records to service organization. Okay. Now, dalam I punya setup, dalam kita punya teknik, kita kata second sentence ialah as per standard. But here, do you learn any accounting standard regarding transferring of information? Have you learned any standard regarding transferring of accounting information from one system to another system? Do we have any accounting standards with regards to transferring of information? No. Okay, absolutely no. So in this case, when we have no as per standard, when we have no accounting standard, you don't have to write that sentence. You terus kepada there is risk that. Okay, there is risk that manipulation of information in terms such as errors in transferring accounting figures might occur. There is risk that manipulation of information such as errors in transferring accounting figures might occur. So if you want to make it specific, for example, omission or double figures are transferred. Boleh juga. Kalau tak nak ada for example pun tak ada masalah. As long as you have mentioned what risk you want to write about. And then don't forget hence. Okay. Now, account apa yang kita tengah cakap sekarang ni? Just now we are talking about inventory account. Hence, inventory might be over or understated. Now we are talking about expenses. Can you make it more specific? What kind of expenses? Payroll expenses, very good. But do we have a payroll cost account? Betul lah, okay. Hence payroll account, just write payroll account. Maybe next step adalah impact over, under or materially misstated. Hence payroll account maybe materially misstated. Okay Nadia, kenapa materially misstated? Because does not reflect actual figures. Because does not reflect actual figures. Can try again. Good try, but that's not the correct answer. Because we don't know whether overvalued or undervalued. Yes, absolutely correct. Okay, so if you want to write materially misstated or you want to write over or understated also can. Yes, you will get your second half mark. Short word is materially misstated. If you want to just write hence payroll account maybe over or understated, also you will get another half mark. Don't write both lah, just choose either one. So in conclusion, if you have no idea is it over or undervalued, you write materially misstated or over or undervalued in your answer. Kalau you tahu clearly that the risk would give rise to overstatement of figures, then you just use overvalued or overstatement. If you know that the risk would give rise to understatement of figures, then you write understatement or undervalued of certain account. Make sure the name of the account is correct. Okay, that's good. Right, now we can move to internal control. Okay, so untuk internal control, actually you have several parts in internal control. First thing first adalah you need to know the definition. And then you need to know the components in internal control. You have the control environment, you have the risk assessment process, you have the information processing or information system, and then you have monitoring control, and then you have control environment, control activities, control procedures, risk assessment process, information system or information processing, and then I'm not sure which one, information system or information processing, and then a monitoring control, and last one is control environment. So this one is under components of internal control. And then once you have understand the definition and the components in internal control, first step adalah you understand lah tadi, okay? And then you kena document your understanding. So documentation of understanding of internal control system, you need to know there are 3 documents that you need to understand. First is your flow chart. Oh, sorry, you use simple one first, narrative notes. Okay, and then you have another option, flow charts. And then you have another option, questionnaires. So these have come out recently in 2017 and 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, the question is asking you, the question asks you on how would auditors use the previous year documentation of ICS, the previous year flow chart, the previous year question S. Macam mana auditors nak guna pakai balik question S yang dia dah guna untuk audit work yang tahun lepas. Okay, so soalan keluar tentang this documentation of understanding of ICS. Okay, apart from that, the questions can also ask you on the definition of the documents and also the advantages and disadvantages. So here merely an memorizing part lah untuk this documentation, and then you would move to first assessment of control risk. Okay, so dalam this first assessment of control risk, it is where auditors determine whether they would perform test of control or not in the first assessment of control risk, whether they would perform test of control or not. So kita ada situation yang mana not every assessment, not every first assessment of control risk kita akan perform test of control. Okay, who can remember when should we perform test of control? Who can remember? When should we perform test of control? When interim audit? No. Interim audit, it can be performed on the final audit, boleh juga, but you have more specific answers. When should you perform test of control? Only when want to rely on internal control. How can you rely on internal control? Okay, during planning, correct. During interim audit, correct. How can you decide you want to rely on internal control or not? How can you decide when you want to rely on internal control or not? When internal control is start with E. To ensure the effectiveness, efficient pula, okay. To satisfy the element, okay. So the most close answer would be from Nadia, to ensure the effectiveness of internal control when IC is effective. Okay, when the internal control is effective, only then you akan perform test of control. Only then you akan decide whether you want to rely on the internal control or not. Meaning that when your first assessment of control risk is inefficient, you would not perform test of control. Okay. So to know further, come and join my IRC in November. Okay, sama ada how you're going to write the task of control and what is another situations that we can have a look at this first assessment of control risk. But the idea is we only perform test of control when the internal control is effective. Nama pun test of control kan. So you nak test benda yang efektif lah. Nak tengok dia efektif atau tak efektif. Kalau you test benda yang confirm not effective, then macam tak function lah benda tu. Okay. And then you have your final assessment of control risk. Okay. Right. So moving on. Once you have understand do you need to perform test of control and then what is your final assessment of control risk, only then you move to the 6 internal control system. You need to learn, you need to understand 6 internal control system in audit and assurance. Okay. Sekarang, style of questions is they can mix all 6 cycles into one question. I prefer that way. You know a bit of sales system, you know a bit of cash system, you know a bit of inventories, and then they ask you in one question. But recently in September, full sales system came out. So we cannot predict, I cannot predict lah what to come out next in December. It can be a standalone system or it can be mixed system. But I would prefer mixed system came out because it is much more easier than a full one system alone. Okay, so how to answer this internal control system? So this is my technique that I will share with you guys for today. And then for further clarification of these techniques, I will further share in during my IRC in November nanti. So my first technique is how you want to identify deficiency in any internal control system questions. Is first, you need to know the ideal cycle of the internal control system. You need to know what is the best policies and procedures, what is the best internal control in sales system. You need to know what is the best you need to know what is the best control in payroll system. By knowing the ideal cycle, by knowing the ideal controls in each of the system, senang you nak identify ada deficiencies atau tidak. If you have no idea what is the ideal cycle, you won't be able to identify the deficiency. Just finding the negative words in the deficiency is not enough. Okay, out of 8 deficiencies, maybe 2 or 3 yang ada the negative words. Apart from that, semua adalah grey area. So in order to tackle this grey area of deficiencies, we need to know that you need to have the idea of the ideal cycle. So in my RIC, I will share with you what is the ideal cycle for sales until non-current asset system. Okay. And then once you have know the ideal cycle, we need to identify the negative words lah. Ini yang memang biasa, yang ramai orang guna. Tapi tak banyak pun kalau dalam final, negative words. And then number 4 is right recommendation. Based on deficiencies found. Okay, examiners often highlight that you all punya recommendation, we are not talking about response tau. When we talk about internal control system, it is a deficiency and recommendation. You want to recommend. Okay, where examiners often highlight that your recommendations did not match with the deficiencies found. For example, tadi contoh kita kata tentang no segregation of duties, and then suddenly you punya recommendation, you tak mention pun tentang segregation of duties. You mention about something else. Sebab tu you punya recommendation will not get any marks for that. So your response must be based on your audit risk. Your recommendation must also be based on your deficiencies found. It cannot be completely different thing. If you are talking about overtime, so your recommendation pun focus on the overtime work. If you are talking about segregation of duties, so have words, segregation of duties words in your answer, okay, to obtain marks. If you are talking about no authorization and no review of overtime payment, then you mention in your recommendation, manager should authorize and reviewed the overtime payment form. It must be specific. So here is also 1 mark. To get 1 mark, you need to write the control procedures plus control monitoring. Half mark here and half mark here. Baru you boleh dapat 1 markah. So what is control procedures and what is control monitoring? So kita akan touch in detail dalam IRC nanti. Okay, so kalau macam audit response, kita just simply write response apa yang auditor kena buat, but this recommendation is quite detailed. We need to write the control procedures and the control monitoring part. That's why first part in internal control tadi kita belajar the elements of internal control. Kita ada control procedures and control monitoring and 3 others component. Okay, and you should start your sentence with management should ... Kalau tadi auditor should, here management should. And don't forget, sometimes for deficiency questions, dia akan minta you prepare a report. So this report summary only includes significant deficiencies in internal control to those charged with governance. So far, untuk new format, the format of the report has been provided to student. So we just fill in the deficiencies macam normal kita buat soalan. Tapi ada certain they can ask you to write a full report, okay? And the professional marks is 2 marks. So during IRC nanti kita akan tengok macam mana to write a full summary, full report to management summary to get the 2 marks, and then we fill in our deficiencies. Faham? Okay, so let's just do one question before we go to Q&A. Alright, so soalannya, sorry. Identify and explain 7 deficiencies in the sales system and provide recommendation to address each of these deficiencies. So soalan memang favorite 7 ke atas naik, so jangan berharap hope for 5 to 6 deficiencies or 5 to 6 audit risks. Quite slim. Okay, the chances to get 5 to 6 deficiencies is no longer applicable. So we need to focus 7 and above. Alright. So let's just pick one paragraph. Okay. Let's look at this paragraph. Oh, sebelum tu terlupa kita punya teknik kan kat bawah ni. So here you have deficiencies, 1 mark, and then recommendation. Okay, sama macam audit risk, kita akan start dengan issue. You get it first, half mark. And then, so when we talk about deficiency, kita tak adalah as per standard. Okay, as per standard hanya untuk audit risk. Audit risk adalah nak detect material misstatement in financial statement. Okay, so untuk deficiencies, kita boleh terus start our sentence with there is risk that. Okay, to get the idea what to write, there is risk that often relate to impact to company. Try to relate to impact to company. Try to give impact to company. There is risk that fraud related to sales recording may occur. There is risk that cash may be stolen. There is risk that there is risk that the employee may claim overtime for hours not worked. So there is risk that give the impact to company, and you end your answer with hence company may something. Yep, hence company may something. Hence company may suffer losses. Hence company may have to incur more overtime expenses in current year. Hence company may suffer in terms of inaccurate revenue recorded. Okay, so the what we call here, the view here is we did not touch any under or overstatement, we did not touch any issues on accounts, we did not touch any issues on impact to financial statement. We are considering the deficiencies impact to company. Apa yang kemungkinan akan jadi kepada company due to this deficiency. So there is no such words as materially misstated here. There is no such words as standards. Here you are more talking about general thing, impact to company. There is risk that company akan what may happen to the company lah negatively. Negative impact to company. Yes, I should write this. Negative impact to company. Okay, so untuk jawapan deficiencies ni actually more to logical thinking lah. Kalau you nak goreng kat sini pun, I boleh cakap dengan my student, you boleh goreng kat sini. Okay, sebab dia tak macam standard. Standard kita kena follow standard. Audit risk kita kena follow standard. Tapi this one, kalau you faham the idea cycle, you boleh faham apa logical negative impact may impact the company, then you can just easily obtain 1 mark here. And then your recommendation, kita akan start dengan management should. Okay, so to get half mark, you write control procedures and then control monitoring. Okay, this makes the big difference. Kalau you salah pun you punya recommendation here, at least you have already wrote management, then the examiners can consider your answers. Okay, kalau let's say lah, tapi kalau you tulis management should ask auditor bla bla, suddenly ada auditor pula dalam jawapan tu, tak betul lah. Okay, sebab our recommendation is we want to recommend, we want to give recommendation to management on how to improve the deficiencies identified. Kita nak bagi recommendation macam mana management boleh improve deficiencies identified so that when we come to audit them next year, these deficiencies have been solved. No longer appear as deficiencies. That is the purpose why they recommend these recommendations to improve the deficiencies. If let's say the deficiencies have occurred several years, kita boleh kata, kita boleh say that the deficiencies is actually one of the significant risks because you have identified these deficiencies since the first time you audit the company, and then now is the 4th year, same deficiencies appear. Then we can say that this is part of the significant risk and you need to clearly highlight this to those charged with governance or to the management. Right? Okay, so this is the techniques how to answer deficiencies. Let's just look at one answer. Okay, this paragraph. The sales staff visit customer site personally. Orders are completed using 2 part pre-printed. 1 copy is left with the customer and the other copy is retained by the salesperson. The sales number, order number is based on the salesperson own identification number. So I want to highlight the last sentence. The sales order number is based on the salesperson's own identification number. Okay, anyone have the idea how should we number the internal document in a company? Anyone have the idea on how we should number our internal documents in a company? Using what basis? Pre-sequentially numbered. Okay, what do you understand by pre-sequentially numbered? What do you understand by this control? The internal document must be pre-sequentially numbered. Why? Match with sales invoice? No. It need not to be matched with sales invoice. Because why? Sometimes, Adlina, kita ada case yang kita issue invoice dulu and then kita deliver barang the next day. So the goods dispatch note numbers would not be the same as sales invoice. Kita ada situation yang kita hantar barang dulu and then baru kita akan issue sales invoices. So the goods dispatch note numbers will not be the same as the numbers for sales invoices. To avoid missing order. Okay, that is the purpose why we have pre-sequentially numbered. Okay, now I'm asking you, what do you understand by pre-sequentially numbered? To every documents must have their own unique number in every documents must have their own unique number in sequence. Very good. Yes, that is the definition of pre-sequentially numbered. Every documents have their own unique number in sequence. So we cannot have two different documents, invoices and GDN for example, sharing the same numbers. Sebab apa? Kita ada dua situation tadi. Kita mungkin dapat barang dulu and later on baru dapat invoices, ataupun kita mungkin dapat invoices dulu, later baru kita akan dapat barang. So the numbers for the two documents should not be the same. Every documents have their own unique number in sequence. Very good. Okay. The purpose of having this pre-sequentially numbered is to avoid missing orders. Okay, when we talk about missing orders, what assertion can we relate this to? This is one of the favorite questions in AA. When we talk about missing order, there is one assertion that we can relate to. Specifically focus on missing thing lah. Completeness, yes. Completeness. Okay. So, macam mana kita nak tulis jawapan kita? Alright. So, tadi kita kata sales order based on sales person, sales, what is it? Own identification number. Okay. So, there is that. Terus kepada, tadi kita tahu dia punya control objectives is to avoid missing order. So you just translate the control objectives kepada negative sentences. There is that the sales order, there is that there might be missing orders in the sales transaction. Okay. If you stop until here, you still unable to get half mark, next half mark. You need to give impact to company, remember? Hence, what is the impact to company? You boleh kaitkan dengan assertion yang you baru mention tadi, completeness. Hence, apa yang akan jadi incomplete? What issue are we talking about here? Apa yang akan maybe incomplete here? Okay. Sales record, yes, I agree. Hence sales record may be incomplete. Hence sales account may be incomplete. Hence sales transaction may be incomplete. Here we are talking about sales issue, sales order, hence sales itself may be incomplete. Yes. Baru you akan dapat your next half mark. Okay. We did not use any words such as under or overstatement. Okay. Instead, we use the assertion incomplete, completeness. Sebab kita nak differentiate our answer with response answer. Sorry, with audit risk answer. Okay, that's the technique. Alright, so to write our recommendation, kita start dengan management should. Okay, so kita tahu the internal document should be pre-sequentially numbered. So you just write that one. management should not management should lah, kita kata sales order lah. The sales order should be in sequentially pre-numbered. Okay, so you write this one, you get your first half mark. So this is the control procedures that you want to talk. The sales order should be in sequentially pre-numbered. You tahu the ideal thing about internal document is it must be sequentially pre-numbered. So you write that as part of your answer. That is the control procedures yang company kena tulis. Kena buat. Dia sequentially pre-numbered. So you get your first half mark. Now kita kena fikir what is the control monitoring. Macam mana company nak monitor that the sales order is sequentially pre-numbered? How company can monitor that the sales order is sequentially pre-numbered? Regular check. Okay. Who need to regularly check this sales order? Would you suggest one name? Here we are talking about sales order. So siapa yang appropriate to regularly check this sales order? Sales manager. Okay, yes. The sales manager. Okay, kalau you tak tahu, tak tulis siapa, then just write relevant person should regularly check the sales order to ensure it is sequentially to ensure it is panjangnya. The sales manager should regularly check the sales order to ensure boleh lah, it is sequentially pre-numbered on a regular basis. So this is the control monitoring. You get your next half mark. Okay. That's how you answer this part. You can see it is a slightly different sentence with auditor's response. Whereby auditor's response, we focus on what auditor should do in order to detect material misstatement. However, in recommendation, how would we recommend the management in order to improve the internal control system? So it's clearly two different things. Okay, so you cannot have mixed these both. Memang kena able to differentiate it because it shouldn't be the same. They have different purposes and they have different answers. Okay, do we have any question? Do we have any questions? We left with 10 minutes for Q&A. If you want to ask something beyond our topic today pun, also can. Do you want more? Okay, we have one question here. For a substantive procedure, it is not related to the scenario like TOC. Substantive procedures not relate to scenario like TOC. Do you mean the same requirement or the same situation? Situation. Oh, I see. So maksudnya you tengah tanya, can one scenario asking for substantive procedures and test of control, is it? So I repeat, are you asking that one scenario can ask for substantive procedures and also test of control in one question? Am I correct? Yes, okay. I don't think so, because if they want to ask you on test of control, usually they would relate it to internal control system questions. For example, they are asking you to find the strength in the internal control system. So to get 2 marks, they would ask you to identify the test of control. Okay, and then this test of control can also come out as a standalone question. Provide 5 tests of control from the non-current asset cycle. Okay, I have not seen any substantive procedures with test of control question. They would ask for a separate, they would give separate scenario, asking for substantive procedures and asking for test of control. They will not mix it together. Because why? Test of control is performed during audit planning process, but substantive procedures is performed during substantive procedures stage. Substantive procedures is used to detect actual material misstatement. Your test of control is for you to detect, to ensure effectiveness of internal control during planning process. Waktu kita punya first assessment control risk. So it's clearly 2 different stages in audit. So they cannot mix it together. So why students tend to confuse? Because they did not understand what is different between TOC and what is different between substantive procedures. They have different purposes. Am I answering your question? Okay, can we have one last question? Okay, for the issue found in the scenario, can I just copy paste the sentence from the question, or do I need to change the sentence a little bit? Is it affected the mark given? No, please just copy paste the sentence from the question. If you want to save time, please just copy paste. But you did not have the function to copy and paste, so you need to type your answer. Okay, you just copy exactly and then type the answer. P papers, you already have the copy and paste function, but in F paper they did not introduce it yet, so you need to just type exactly the exact sentence from the scenario. No affected marks, no reduction of marks, nothing, just half mark as long as you mention the points in the scenario.
Miss, tapi hari tu saya exam, ada orang kata dia boleh buat. Dia boleh copy
You can
paste.
copy and paste, okay. Based on my recent talk with the examiners, the function is still not yet available for F paper. I shall look further into that. Okay, this is a good news kalau you can copy and paste, because in P papers, if you copy and paste, you will not get any marks. P paper is more to application, right? You have to strategically apply the issues. All right. So in F paper, you need to copy paste the sentence to get half marks. So kalau betul functions tu available, I will be very happy. I will look further into that. Thank you, Ikwan, for telling me. All right. One more question.
Miss.
Yes.
Next, P paper next time pun dah ada CBE
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, March 2021. Or June 2021, yes. March or June 2021, yes. Okay, no longer paper-based. Everything is computer-based except for text lah. Okay, we have one question here. In a year, there is interim and final year audit, right? Does external auditor can do both? Does external auditor can do both? Yeah. In any a good planning, a good audit planning is they would the partner and the manager would separate the audit into interim and final audit, because the purpose of interim audit is to perform procedures that unable to be performed after year end, or you want to save time so that in your final audit you just left with few months punya transactions to you perform audit work, to perform substantive procedures. For example, kalau you audit financial year end is December, okay, so you punya interim audit is before December lah. So you already have the 9 months financial statement of the year. So that first 9 months of the financial statement, you can already start you punya substantive procedures, because 9 months tu dah confirm yang betul. So the next 3 months from October until December, you need to wait for the adjustment, you need to wait for the review, and so you can start the next 3 months of the financial statement transactions after year end final audit. So you can have both interim and final audit, and usually external auditor would do both. In real life, mungkin semua dia campak dekat final audit, no interim audit. Okay, tapi in your syllabus, we are told to share with you guys that we need to split our audit into interim and final, so that we can allocate our time to perform test of control. We can allocate our time to effectively obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, and so able to fully perform our substantive procedures effectively. So there is no such thing as cannot just do one ataupun cannot do both. Okay, they should do both. All right. So before we end our session, I need to share this one. Okay, we still have 2 minutes. I need to share, is it? Here. This massive discount for TYMBA refresh class students. So if you come and join us after your refresh class, you would get 100 ringgit discounts. And if you use my referral code, something like that, you would get 15 ringgit off also. 5 or 15 ringgit off. So you will save a lot if you join under these massive discounts. Let me just share the link. Okay, this is the registration link. Wait. I share it in your chat box. Okay, you can just click it and sign up for our IRC, my IRC, in November. The due date is 18 October, 5 p.m. Oh, today. Today is the due date, 5 p.m. Okay. Live online classes only. So no face-to-face. So I hope everyone benefited from our class today. I'm sorry if there is any lacking of explanations or whatever. Just to remind again, this is just a refresh class. I think I give more than enough. I hope I can see you guys in November. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for attending this class. Thank